Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Aquarius Rising Africa. And we're in true African style again tonight with the gorgeous Amanda Bates. Welcome. How are you, angel face, beautiful woman, amazing
Oh,
angel for the world?
thank you, Chantal. Oh, thanks
Well,
for
I
the
thank God for
blessing.
sending you. That's definitely something I thank God for. So it's amazing to have
Oh,
you back. Thank you so much. And
thank
I'm
you.
really looking forward to our conversations tonight as well. So how's your week been? Anything exciting, interesting that's come up for you that you want to share with our viewers before we go ahead?
Oh, wow. Well, okay. Well, I didn't have a birthday. I wasn't a birthday girl this week like you were. So,
What?
oh, that's good.
It
Celebrate
was,
life. Oh,
yeah,
that's amazing. I'm so well. Happy birthday for you.
thank
I know it was in the week, but we normally have like a whole week's birthday at our age. We don't want only one day. So,
never.
but I didn't have a birthday, but I was pretty busy. Counseling and just working with overcomers, and doing great stuff. So it's been a
Yeah.
busy week, and every week we learn. Every person you work with is different, and so wow, we've really been learning a lot. We're working with the younger generations, so they're pretty interesting because they're very high tech, and I've got to really stretch, to try and keep up. So that's been my week. That's been my week.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah,
that's amazing. I mean, and you
yeah.
talk about actually working with the younger generation. Are you talking about let's say maybe the late 20s, early 30s? Is that who you're referring to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you say they're high tech, what do you mean? Is it are you talking about the people that have been programmed coming out
Yeah,
of the system? What
that's
does
right.
that mean
That's right.
exactly?
No, it's Chantal, it's really techno sorcery. I mean, it's they're taking a technology and they are weaponizing it. They're making it evil. And so, you talk about xenobots, you talk about nanobots, you talk about how they just the way they've been programmed is very different. Like the older people that we also work with, those that are 50, 60, 70s, we've even got 70-year-olds. They've been programmed differently. So the music that they would listen to would be that they were programmed on was different. It was the music of the time. For example, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds was one of those that they used a lot. And so you would find, Lucy for Lucifer, and diamonds, a lot of diamond programming and stuff. The drugs were different in those days, whereas today they don't really need any of that stuff. They don't need the drugs. They don't need that because they've got technology, they've got frequencies, everything's frequencies, everything's quantum. So it's a different ball game. And I think what we should keep in mind is that the technology we see in our with our eyes in our lifetime in this time, the cult is way ahead, like 30 to 50 years ahead,
Absolutely.
of what we know. And that's why when we say things of what these precious people share with us, what's been going on, then the normal guy on the street would say, but we don't have that kind of technology. This is nonsense, but you can't go according to that. Because
Mhm.
what we are exposed to and told, this is where science is. The cult is way past that.
I
So
fully agree.
yeah,
It's what I always say, I think we've been so lied to when it comes to what they're capable of and what the technologies are and have been for such a long time. That's
yeah,
part of us being dumbed down. This is we were having just a little bit of a off-air chat beforehand, and it's like we as humans have been so duped and so dumbed down by these smart, as you say, techno whizzes that, and the way they have literally cast spells on humanity for such a long time. So the average person on the street has no idea about what's really going on. And which is why it's such a heavy, you know, the word cognitive dissonance that we always use. There is so much of that out there that the average person can't conceive what has really been going on. And so when these people start speaking and sharing their stories, it is a beautiful thing, you know, because that's what we were also saying. And I mentioned one of my previous shows as well, is that I believe, you know, part of my gift is to see things in dreams. God gives me dreams. So I've had for a few times observed the earth from above and seen this black, gooey, tar-filled, sticky, like this web, spider web of deception that is over the earth, and literally then obviously humanity. So my question to God in one of my dreams was, okay, so what do we do to change this? You know, and for me, it was very simple. God doesn't expect us to go there with pangas and machetes and AK-47, mowing the bad guys down, as unfortunately a lot of people seem to think that we need to do. That you're really just becoming the monster when you do that. And I'm not saying you know, there aren't times where maybe that is required when you are literally in face-to-face combat, okay, with that, of course, is a different story. I'm talking about the average person on the street who now thinks that they've now got to go and play Spartacus there or whatever with all the bad guys and call up all this and decapitate this and, you know, whatever. It's just such nonsense that. But every person that comes out of the system, and that's why our Overcomer series for me is so powerful. And I know I'm so proud that this channel is, if not the first, one of the very first when we began, that started creating a platform for people that have come out of the system and that can use their voice to talk and actually say, well, this has happened. And every time someone does that, I just get goosebumps when I speak about it. It's like the web gets lighter and it becomes less dark and mucky and gunky. And every time someone there says, I believe you, wow, this is insane, I believe you, that's the web getting lighter. So everything is getting lighter. We don't have to go and combat, as I said, with AK-47s and pangas and machetes. We just keep using our beautiful voices, speaking the truth, saying what is necessary, and then we will then be able to, I always say, link arms, link hands, stand up together. And every time someone uses and finds the courage to use their voice, then it just becomes easier and easier and easier. You know, Zandre Buerta the other day, what an amazing lady that is, right? On our
absolutely.
She said something so special, which she just says, I'm hidden, but I'm not hiding. And you know, that is what happens when you have the truth in your heart and you stand aligned with your truth. You don't have to hide, but you are automatically, you have a light that is too bright for these guys to see you type thing, or you are divinely protected. And that is what happens when we use our voices. Anyway, so I think it's a beautiful thing for people to speak up and speak out. And to be able to share their truth and share their knowledge. And that's how we all get to wake up. And, you know, I must say, I sometimes get very impatient with people who are like in denial of this. And no, I don't want to see that. I only want to see the good things. And I'm not ready to look at that. And I'm going, well, by not looking at it, you actually are complicit.
Yeah, that's right.
We are all here with the responsibility to heal this nastiness at the time that we're in. That's my 10 cents worth. Anyway, we went our way, a little bit off topic there. But it was really good to say that anyway. I think that's
good. Yeah.
Anyway, so tonight, what we sort of spoke about, bringing to the fore, we spoke about the bloodline curses the last time that I had you chatting with you, and you were talking about praying about it, and in that way, sort of releasing whatever demonic forces are attached to that, and literally the sins of the father.
Yeah.
So what happens? The question I have, and there's a couple of questions, but the first question I have would be, let's say that doesn't work, or it's not, I don't want to say it's not enough, but let's say people haven't had the greatest success in that way. Maybe it's helped to a point. And what happens after that? I mean, what would be the next step that someone would need to do in order to release themselves of that?
Okay. I'm going to take you through, just like we would do counseling with a person that doesn't know that they've had a history of abuse. And I'm talking, like real deep stuff, and it's hidden. And many times they're so dissociated from what is going on that they really are not connected. They don't know, that there's deeper stuff. So what we do is we take everybody through just like the first sweep, of a broom, cleaning up and sweeping. And so we would look at generational curses, because that's where Satan specializes. That's where he gets his power from. And what is really interesting is that he comes and he manifests himself many times. Even in South Africa, we're seeing that a lot, and that is as a goat. He's the goat god. And so we also know with the whole ancestral stuff, and there's always the goats. They've got goats around, and they do hectic things as well to the animals. And when you really get into the gory stuff of the witchcraft, it's always with a goat. And it was interesting. I was sharing with somebody the other day, and when we look at the price, that when Jesus went to the cross and the price he paid, there are certain things that he did on the Day of Atonement, is the day that we sort of really think about what did he do. And Passover is also, he's the Passover lamb, but he was also, what was very interesting, on the Day of Atonement, there were two goats. And the one goat was slaughtered, and they took the blood and they put it on the mercy seat. And the second goat was sent into the wilderness, and there was a watchman that had to watch the goat and make sure that it died in the wilderness. And because if it came back to the camp where the people were, then the iniquity, this goat was called the goat that carried away the iniquity. So every year, this is what they would do. This was, what God would tell the people to do. This was before Jesus came. So they would then slaughter the two goats. The one would be slaughtered and the goat sprinkled on the mercy seat, but the second goat would be sent into the wilderness, and it had to die in the wilderness. So if the goat came back, there would be trouble, because then all the iniquity, the high priest would put his hands on the head of the second goat, and then put all the iniquity of the people on that goat, and then send it away to die in the wilderness. So when you look at the death of Jesus, you see that when he died, he cried out. There was a stage, and he was the high priest, and he was officiating his own death, basically. And he died as the first goat that was sacrificed. And then he died as the second goat as well. But people don't think of that. But I'm talking iniquity. I'm talking generational curses here. And so that second goat that had to die in the wilderness, there was a stage on the cross when Jesus cried out to God, the Father, and he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? And it was at that stage where he was cut off completely from God. And that was the first time he was ever cut off from his father. And so he felt that loneliness. He felt that awful rejection. He felt that horrible, he was carrying the iniquity, generational curses of the world.
Yeah. Disconnection.
Yeah.
Disconnection from God,
Yeah.
which is really disconnection from God, right?
That's it. So as the second goat, he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? And then he died. So that means he was both goats. So he was the sacrificial lamb, but he was also the goat that died in the wilderness, that carried away the iniquity. And so when we talk about generational curses, that is why there's nothing else that can take away iniquity. It is only the blood of Jesus that can do that. And so it is important that we understand that. So when people come to us, the first thing we do, and we look at, and we go into detail, I take 3 routes. I take that we, our family tree. Everybody knows we've got like a family tree. And then this tree has got roots. And I focus specifically on 3 main roots. And that is bloodshed. So if there's been bloodshed on the family, that brings a major curse. And I want you to think in the line of SRA. I mean, bloodshed is one of the big things that they go for. How many babies do they kill? All the horrible things they do. The next one's sexual. We know it's always sex and blood, so it's all the sexual stuff. It's all the rape, the most horrific things they do, because the sexual act that is supposed to be the one that's within marriage and covenant and, intimacy, God's way, is very, very holy ground, and it's protected. So there's boundaries around it. So what do? They defile it. Whatever God has put in place, they want to destroy. So they go for the sexual stuff, because when they hit you sexually, you're not just body on body. Your sexuality is body, soul, spirit.
Sure.
If they want to transfer demons into you, if they want to put entities into you, they do it through sex.
Yeah.
So the high priest of the order, of the cult, of whatever you're in, will have sex with this kid, this little girl, and impregnate her, and just put so many demons and entities and things into her through the sexual act. He transfers his powers. That's how demonic power gets transferred, is through sex. So that's your second route that we look at in depth. And then the third one is the occult. So, if you dabble into witchcraft, all evil stuff. So all 3 of those things is very prevalent in SRA, so that's really where things are deep. And so what we do is we will take the normal person that comes for help and says, okay, I want to clean up my life. Then we take them through the cleansing of generational curses. We look at these 3 routes. We've got a checklist just to help them, remind them of how doors could have opened up in the family. We say, okay, check your cousins, check your uncles, check your aunts, go a little bit back in the family tree and see what fruit is manifesting, because the fruit shows the root. So if you don't know, look at the fruit. What fruit is manifesting in your life? Because if we are likened to a tree, Psalm 1, we are likened to a tree. And so we sprout out our leaves and we sprout out our fruit. And so if we are planted at the rivers where there's living water, then, we will give our fruit, and everything will go good. But if we are tapped into the demonic side, and that's what family isn't, we are all guilty. We've all been exposed to this stuff, and we come from Adam and Eve. So, I mean, we go back a long way. And a lot of us have had things that have just gone wrong in our lives, and wrong things. So there's nobody that's pure. We're not in heaven yet. So we have got work to do, And then we're preparing for the new Jerusalem, which is the marriage supper of the Lamb. And part of that preparation is dealing with your iniquity, clearing up the iniquity, because Jesus was the one that went into the wilderness and died without God. He was, when God, when he cried out, he was that goat that carried the iniquity of the families. And so we can appropriate that. We can make it our own. And then people would say, okay, Amanda, I've gone through all of that. I have prayed all the prayers you've told me to pray. I have done my part. I have cleaned up, worked through your teachings, worked through all of that, but stuff, I'm still not, there's still something wrong. I'm still having nightmares. I'm still having entities attack me at night. The doors aren't closed. So what do you suggest? What must I do now? And that is the sure sign. Okay, now we've got to go deeper. So then we say, no, we've got to start understanding, because just like, sin that has been done to you as a child, you didn't ask for these bad things to happen to you, but it happened. And it was not your choice. And so there are emotional wounds as well, which can be generational. Now, this is interesting, Chantal. I want to share this with you. I come from a Afrikaans family. Both mom and dad were Afrikaans family. And so I marry a Roli who's half Afrikaans and half Englishman. So I have huge problems with my mother-in-law. I mean, the mother-in-law stories. But now I'm struggling because I'm supposed to be a Christian, and I'm supposed to love her. And I've just got this huge issue with this mother-in-law of mine. And I can't understand why, but then I've got a problem with the Queen, and I'm thinking, who does she think she is, and the Queen of England, and whenever we would think of somebody that, make a joke of somebody that thinks that they're great, and say, oh, you think you're the Queen of England, and that was like our saying just amongst ourselves. But that's just the way I couldn't understand the struggle. Why was I having this war inside of me? So my children, I have 3, they complete school and then they go and study. And when they finish study, they say, well, they'd like to go overseas. It was where all the young people go overseas and then they go and spread their wings and study and whatever. So my children decide they're going to do that. So where do you think they decide to go? England.
Where else?
They decide to visit the Queen. And no, there's so many other countries. Why the Queen? But anyway, I went to visit them a few times. Obviously, they were there for up to about 6 years. My 2 girls were there a long time. My son couldn't handle the weather. He's a sportsman, and he needed the South African sunny weather to continue on his bike and running and whatever he did. He couldn't handle that wet weather. So he wasn't there for too long, but my girls were. And so we visited them often. And I was still struggling, really, really struggling with this. So my daughter gets a car, and it's an interesting story, because they promised her a vehicle. She's a physio. So she goes to work for a company there. They come and recruit the South African physios because they're very good, well trained. So Debbie is now doing her thing and working for Ford Motor Company. So they said to her, no, you'll get a vehicle and you get an apartment and we'll look after you. Get there. And it's winter and I see my child on a scooter. Well, I was not impressed. I said to her, Debbie, you can't ride around in this cold with a stupid scooter. We've got to get you a car. So she says, Mom, there's a car in the park. We can go and look at this car. It's a car that, just got stickers on and whatever. So I said, well, bring the phone number. So we phoned the guy. It turned out he was a mechanic from this Ford Motor Company where Debbie was working as a physio. And we get the car, and I said to him, please, you've got to look after this is my baby. You've got to look after her. And the Bible says, I mean, this guy's not a believer. I don't think he's even seen a Bible. I said to him, the Bible says you must look after the stranger in your city. So I said, you've got to look after my baby. So if the car breaks, you must please fix it. Anyway, we drive off there with this car. The windows didn't want to really, turn up and down, but we felt from a scooter, what an upgrade, to this Rover. So we've got this Rover, and Debbie, at least she got a car. Anyway, we don't know all the rules, the traffic rules of England. So we park at certain places, but then you can only park to certain times. But after that, you can't park there anymore. But we don't know that. So we get fines. They write £50 tickets, I mean, £50 is a lot of money for a South African.
Exactly.
So
wow.
I'm so upset, and I'm thinking, what does the Queen want this money for? And I've got this war going on with the Queen. Anyway, long story short, one day they went off to work, and I said, God, now you got to speak to me, because I can't handle this war inside of me anymore. I've got to know what's going on. So he then showed me, as I went on my knees on English soil, I had a picture of my forefathers in a concentration camp. And it was the whole English war, where the English came to South Africa. Now, we had concentration camps before the Nazis had their concentration camps.
The Boers and the English, right? The English were absolutely...
Yeah, so they raped the woman, and many children died with hunger and all of that stuff. So what I didn't know was that iniquity of that hatred and anger was inside me. It was in my DNA. And I was carrying that iniquity load, and I never knew.
So your mother-in-law must have been English, right? She was the English-speaking one.
So English side. She was the English. Yeah. So Rolly's her grandpa stood as one of the guards for the Queen.
Oh wow!
So that was my bloodline son. So you could, and I carried this inside of me without understanding, because I didn't dig up my history and get actual facts that this is what was going on. But when God showed me, I knew that I knew. It's your spirit knowing. This is it. And right there, I prayed, and I forgave the English for what they did to my forefathers, and whoever died and whoever cursed the English. I repented for that. And I made a choice, and I said, Father, they are your people. You created them, and I want to bless the English people. And I'm telling you, Chantel, it was absolutely amazing. Just forgiveness and the power of letting go of that iniquity that was in my blood, screaming for war, and revenge and hatred and bitterness. And that anger, it was horrible. Anyway, that opened my eyes big time. And I realized, that so many people are walking with things inside of them that they can't explain. And because you don't have proof or a photograph of someone in a concentration camp. I mean, that's 1800s, So
I agree.
It was in my blood, and I had to deal with it. I had to face it, deal with it. And I'm telling you, after that, England blessed my children so amazingly. It was just like, it was so awesome. And we had such good memories and things that we had with the children after I could deal with that thing, deal with it, because Jesus had died for it. He died for whatever the English had done. And I'm still holding on to it, And so that was just the letting go. So when people come, that's the route we go. We say, okay, now we've got to check and see, you're still having problems. So now we've got to see, maybe you suffered trauma, but you're not aware of it. And your mind has blanked it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I want to run through some slides, if that's okay, Chantal.
Oh, sure, I'd love you. Please, yeah.
It's going to just make it easy. So I'm going to screen share. There we go. And this one. Okay. So are you seeing me? You seeing my slides? Good. All right. I'm going to play. No, go away. That one must go away.
I'm so glad you could do this.
Go away? Oh, there we go. I can just drag it away. There we go. Okay. I start to get nervous.
If this is me, I'd be phoning Mornay around about now.
Yeah, I need Mornay now. Yeah. It's okay. Go. I'm going to go. Yeah. Wonderful. So Chantal, this is just my ministry for those people that are interested in finding my stuff. Everything's free, free downloads. It's there. It's just available. And so it's canaanministries.org for those of you wanting to look it up.
Yeah.
So here we go. All of us have needs. We come into this world and we all have needs. So you come as a baby, you are helpless. You've got to be fed your nappy. You've got to be bathed. Everything. As you have needs. And we need love and affection. We need the hugs. We need to be told we are the best, greatest little person on this earth.
Courage all the way. Absolutely.
We're full of smiles. And we need bonding and touch and safety. We need to know mommy and daddy's safe and boundaries and all these wonderful good things. If I don't get that, if that's not part of my childhood, if my mom was an alcoholic, or my dad was an alcoholic, or mom's on drugs, or mom's life is all falling apart and she's broken and there's divorce and there's just a mess. Then her emotions and the way she feels and the way she's going up and down with her emotions, she's going to download all of that gunk onto me. And I'm going to not know who my mommy is. Is she safe or is she not safe? And my little mind is trying to make sense of this nonsense that's going on around me. And what happens is I can create a good mommy, a mommy that loves me, a mommy that smiles and happy. But then there's a bad mommy. Can you see what my mind does?
Yeah.
To try and make sense. So then when my mommy's angry and my mommy beats me and my mommy hits me against the wall and my mommy screams at me, when all of that happens, then I've got a bad mommy. And I create a part of me that now can relate to her as bad mommy. And I know, stay out of her way. But when there's the loving mommy, when there's the good mommy, the mommy who loves me and hugs me and kisses me, then I've got another part of me that can go to her and she'll love me and hug me. And already as a tiny little tot, I have in my mind, in my crib, I've already split. And I've created a good mommy and a bad mommy, a good baby and a bad baby. So that I can cope.
May I just ask you if, while we're just on this topic, would this be the same then? Are we talking as well? Because I wanted to touch on the DID and the SRA. What that means.
That's the beginning of DID. Yeah.
Okay, the dissociative identity disorder. So would this be the same as that then? Okay.
Yes,
Great.
that's it.
Makes a lot of sense.
That's the very beginning, you know, of trauma. This is now trauma counseling.
Yeah.
And that's the very beginning of trauma in a little baby's life, is when mom's messed up. And this is, mom is like a perpetrator, but she's not a programmer. So we're not talking SRA now yet. I'm just going to focus on DID. And then I'm going to go over to what the difference is with an SRA person. And so we are talking about trauma. And so it's a mom that's messed, a dad that's messed up. And they, instead of giving me the love and the affection and the hugs and the bonding and the safety that I need, I'm now having this conflict in this broken mommy and daddy and the way they treat me. And the only way I can make sense is to split and have a side of me, a good baby, who will relate to a good mommy. Mm. And a bad baby, because mommy tells me I'm bad. So now I make a bad baby that is now angry and upset with this angry mommy. Mm. So I internalize what is going on the outside. Yeah. And this is something that people really need to understand when it comes to DID, when it comes to the splitting of the mind, is whatever is going on in my outside world, I will internalize. That is plain, straightforward psychology. This is the way we function. This is the way my little brain works. And so I need to understand that whatever is on the outside, so if the perpetrator, let's say the perpetrator is let's say it's I'm going to mention a very cruel, evil man, Joseph Mengele. He was the one that did the programming in the concentration camps. He did lots of stuff. So there are so many that have memories of Joseph Mengele. So what do? They internalize Joseph Mengele. They create a part of Joseph Mengele inside.
Sure.
Do you see what I'm saying? And that's just what the mind does.
Yeah.
To deal with trauma is what is going on.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that makes, and if I'm going a little bit off the topic here, we're welcome to put it into abeyance.
Okay.
But isn't that then also possible how we then become, I mean, let's say Joseph Mengele, the monster Joseph Mengele, then by creating that little part of Joseph Mengele, that means we also have the ability then to become that monster, right? Is that, yes. Would you agree with that?
Exactly. And that is, when we get there, just remind me, please, Chantal, because that's a very good point, that when we get to SRA and you have an external perpetrator who is doing evil things to you as a child, you build that perpetrator inside of you. And you become Joseph Mengele.
Yeah, exactly.
And you then become a perpetrator as well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So as we progress, we'll get there. All right. So what we then see is we are all designed for joy and love. All right. We're not designed to be rejected and hurt and all these bad things. So, but when our needs are not met, in other words, my mom's got issues and maybe she's on drugs. So she goes on a trip and she leaves me. She doesn't feed me. My nappy, I'm lying in my nappy. I'm screaming and she is way off on a trip and she just leaves me, pulls the door shut and leaves me to scream. And I scream and scream and scream until nobody comes. Nobody comes. And then I eventually stop screaming. And then I lock up. I shut my heart. I don't trust in you.
It's going to be met, yeah.
Can you see the trauma? Can you see the trauma of that child? And then the child has to try and comfort itself because mom's not there. And so the child will start rocking. The child, you've seen children. You've seen children. My daughter's a play therapist, my firstborn, she's a play therapist. And so she works with children that have been through trauma. And when she was working in England, she had to work with children. They had aftercare center. And in this aftercare center, they had baby blankets, they had baby bottles, they had dummies that they would suck. These children, so they go to school normal time till 2:00 when they come out. Then they go to aftercare, and then they go into this special room that's created with pillows, soft blankies, soft toys, baby stuff. Because what happened to them when they were babies, they were not cared for. So they've got missing building blocks of safety, of hugs, of being comforted when they hurt. And now those are outstanding. And so they have huge emotional issues. They have outbursts. They hurt other children. They act out horrifically because of their own pain. And then the therapists would take them into this room, and they would then let them just play, and they would play like they're babies. And they would take the dummy, and they would take a bottle, and they would take a blankie, and they would take a teddy bear, and they would be babies for that time that they're in this room, in this classroom. They're babies because then the therapist will sit there and take them in their arms and start to rock them and start to comfort them. What mommy never did, the therapist has to now put in. It's amazing because you've got to have these pathways in the brain so that you can be a healthy adult.
Yeah.
And be able to be mature. So you've got to have these missing building blocks put into place. Otherwise, you can't mature. All right. So when our needs are not met, we're going to find a substitute. So whether it's drugs, now I'm growing up, I'm getting into my teenage years. I've got missing building blocks. So I can go into drugs now. I can go into promiscuity. So I sleep with any guy because he says he loves me. And now I think, okay, love and sex is the same thing. So I hop in and out of bed, with guys because this is how they say this is love. I'm so messed up. I'm so messed up because of what went wrong, the trauma that I suffered as a child. Okay, so what we now have is right there's the baby, newborn baby. You get born with an emotional bucket, which is your heart, of course. And then you start to fill up your emotional bucket. These are the emotional wounds that come through trauma. And there's a time clock in your life. And I'm just giving as an example, different time periods in our life as we grow up. Then this emotional bucket fills up, but with negative emotions. There's no safety. There's no hugs. There's no, just all the comfort that I should be getting. So what happens? My emotional bucket starts from the crib, get filled up with all these negative things. Rejection. We're not made for rejection. Rejection is such a pain to deal with because there's never an end date. Because once you start with rejection in your life, if you don't get healed of all the trauma that happened with you, and the comfort and the safety and the things get put back into your life, and that the pathways get formed so that you can be a mature adult, you will suffer rejection because everything about you is going to scream, reject me, because you become a person that nobody likes. It's just because of the rejection that has attached itself to you. All right, that's a rejection. Then you grow up and here's fear and hopelessness. And you grow up further, there's shame. You get shamed at school. You get shamed for what you look like. You get shamed for when your body starts developing. You get shamed, about just going into puberty, and You get shamed about, oh, look at your legs, look at your nose, look at your ears. You know, children are cruel. We get shamed. Then you grow up, and because of all that stuff, the anger and the hatred, and then you start acting out. You know, you start hurting others and biting. You bite other children, and all of these things go wrong in your life. Bitterness. So you can see I'm growing up the whole time, and my emotional tank is filling up. Now I'm an adult, and I'm so inferior. I'm so filled with shame. I'm so messed up. I cannot even think I can keep a job. I don't feel I'm good enough to keep a job. I don't feel I can even do the job. And so I have all these insecurities and all of this stuff, because this is what my emotional bucket has been filled up with. Now, you know, we counseled a little girl. She was 2.5 when she came to this family. This family adopted her. And when she arrived with them, they just loved on her. You know, they brought to the beautiful room, did her room beautiful, painted, gave her every single thing this little girl's heart desired. But by the time she was going into school, she was having learning disabilities, major. She was really struggling with friends. She was biting them, hurting them, hitting them. By the time she was 12, they were going to put her into a special school for children that can't behave themselves. She was getting labeled. You know, they put labels on her saying, you know, she is ADHD, she's this, she's that. She is just impossible. We can't work with her. She can't be in a normal school. She needs a one-to-one teacher. She can't be a normal child. So by the time these parents came to us for help, they were just desperate. They were desperate. They had given her everything. So I said to them, okay, where does this child, you know, what's her history? What's the background? No, we got her at 2.5. I said, well, what happened before 2.5? She has a file. It was thick like this with the social worker. Her parents were both in drugs. To get drugs, the mom had to sell her body. So that the father of the little girl pimped the mother so that they could get money, so that they could get the drugs. So now the child needs milk. They decided to have this child, you know, and here they've got this baby, but this baby needs milk. But they don't want to take the money for the drugs because it's going to now, you know, that's messing up with their drug money. So they fed her diet pills. Listen to this, Chantel. This is in South Africa. They fed this little baby diet pills not to get hungry. Do you know that when this family got her, her hair was like candy floss. Her teeth were gone, rotten, gone, because she had no nutrients. She was living on diet pills and then eating whatever scraps they were giving her. They tried powdered milk. It was just a horrific situation. So this little girl was so damaged. But when they took her at 2.5, now you're thinking 2.5 is pretty small. She can't remember what happened. But what they did with her, they groomed her so that when mom was busy in the room with another uncle, they groomed the little girl to get ready with the next uncle who's sitting waiting to go into the room. So they got her and they taught her how to unzip and how to fiddle and play and prepare this man for his appointment in the bedroom with mom. So this little girl was groomed, coached sexually before she could even speak. And that was her life, 2.5 years. So when they got her, this family, they're a very well-off family, lots of love, really, really caring. And they gave her everything. They tried, they took this most broken little child into their homes and tried to see what they can give her a better future. Anyway, what happened was this little girl then, here she's 12 and they're labeling, and she's got to have a tutor. She's got a one-on-one teacher because she's just dropped out on the rest of the schooling. And I said to them, listen, this child, her emotional bucket is so full. She doesn't know it. She can't remember. That's what happens. You suppress it completely. You bury it. Your mind, it's so traumatic. And also you're small. So your pathways aren't formed yet. But she's just buried it completely. It's gone. She herself cannot remember anything of those days. And so we started to work. I said to the mom and dad, if they can organize that the child goes and has a milkshake and just keep her busy, but we got to do the praying and the repenting of what was done to this child. Somebody must repent for that. And they are now legal parents of this child. Are they prepared to do it? They said, sure, anytime. They prepared to pray. So the child went off with somebody that she knew, and she had her time of milkshake and visit. And I sat with the parents, and the two of them repented of everything that I've just told you, the diet pills, the sexual stuff, just the no caring, just the abuse, the horrific abuse that this child suffered. And so they wept as parents, just crying through the prayers as they were bringing this before God and saying, Father, we ask forgiveness where these parents were not parents, and what they did to this child and how they've wounded this child, and all her emotional bucket is so full. Anyway, after a while, we worked through it. I did all the praying and the warfare and all of that stuff with the parents on their own. And then we got the little girl to come back. And I just sat with her, took her hands, looked her in the eyes, and I said, my girl, I hear that you're going through a difficult time. She said, yeah, that's true. I said, you don't want to go through this anymore. She said, no, I don't want this anymore. She said, but I don't know why I am like this. I don't know why I do what I do. Because now she's being accused of sexually messing with other children as well. And she doesn't know why. And what was so interesting was the parents were telling us that every morning when she wakes up, all her bedding is twisted off her bed because she has such a restless nights that she is, churning and dreams and twisting and she just is, her whole bed is so messed up. All the sheets are off. Every morning they have to, redo the whole bed. There's no calm. There's no peace. And so anyway, I said to her, listen, I'm going to pray for you. I prayed with mom and dad, but I'm not going to go through all those prayers mom and dad have done. So what we're going to do is we're going to pray and we're going to ask God to pull the plug. It's like a bath full of dirty water. And it's got to drain out. And your bath has been filled with dirty water. All these emotions, the anger, the bitterness, all of that stuff is in that bath. And we got to pull the plug and we got to drain it out. Because I was saying, God, I don't know. This child is so loaded with all this trauma. Where do I begin? And it's all before 2.5 years of age. So I said, Father, just give me a strategy. Just give me a way of prayer. And I just prayed with her and I said, Father, I bring this child with all of this trauma that she's been through. I bring her before you now. And I ask you to pull the plug of her emotional tank that has been so filled with gunk. This child doesn't even know it. That which was piled on top, the love and all she got after 2.5 years didn't make up for all that emotional baggage and the missing building blocks that she didn't get as a baby. So I just trusted God, and we prayed, and I just waited, and I said, Father, just let all the trauma go, every bad memory, every bad emotion, because every emotion is a frequency. And so she's been carrying all this negative frequency, this negative energy with her all the time that she couldn't explain. And so we just, Father, let it go, and just waited a while. And I just led her in a very simple prayer of renouncing the iniquity that she was born with, that she received from her birth mommy and her birth daddy. And that she says, no, I don't want it. So with her own mouth, she rejected it, she renounced it, and I just asked God to take it. Well, it was amazing. She looked up at me with a big smile, and she says, I think I feel better. And went home. And of course, I'm now, Father, did it work? Did it work? Because it's such a huge trauma. And what was so amazing, Chantel, was that her brother of this family that she was with, he was a big brother already. And he contacted me and he said to me, you will not believe the difference in my little sister. It took a few months, of course, of just processing and working through this. But within 6 months, she was back at a normal school. She was upping her grades. She was doing very well academically. She was settling down as a normal little girl. Her bed, the biggest news was her bed was beautiful in the morning. I mean, obviously a child, it messes up, the bed, but not like she used to twist and turn with, you could see the trauma and the torment. All of that had lifted. And so mom and dad contacted me and said, we got to just let you know. We waited because we didn't know if it was going to work. And we were so disappointed before because we'd taken her to all the best who's professors and whatever. And we couldn't get this child, just to be normal. And we waited to make sure that this is going to be okay. Yeah. And that was the story. So it just shows you how important this time of our life is. So unfulfilled needs are transformed into emotional pain, which is the frequency, that negative frequency. And I think I'm going to just go off here, and then we can. I'm going to just go back so that you and I can continue talking. Okay. So Chantel,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That truly is amazing. And that is so, it's really just so from what, that is really that spiritual connection to God, to know that, and, again, with everything, it's there's nothing more powerful than that connection to God.
Yes.
Because when we disconnect from our source, from God,
yes,
that's when things go wrong. And and I'm just seeing how that's working out in this day and age as well. When we are disconnected from our trust, from our true spiritual awareness, and decide to do that, isn't that, I'm just seeing the connection there with what's happening globally as well, that disconnection from God, the trust, the knowing that you are free, you are sovereign, you are powerful, you don't need anything, you are healthy, you are well, all of these things. But instead, because of the fear and the disconnect from that truth, that's when we go for that, literally selling our soul, isn't it? Isn't that a form of selling your soul? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this little girl was DID. So she had dissociated because of all the trauma that she'd been through. I mean, the first 2.5 years was just horrific. Diet, abuse, all of that stuff. So her little mind split. And so here she's in all these different parts. She's got a sexual part. That's why she started messing with the other kids.
Yeah, of course.
So she academically, she was struggling because she didn't have the pathways, because you've got a right and a left brain. And then you've got a middle bridge part, which we call the corpus callosum. And the right and the left brain have to talk to each other. But what happens is with DID, the pathways get distorted. And so I struggle academically. I struggle I can be bright. I can have a bright IQ, but I can't write down like a comprehension. I can maybe not even read because my brain isn't functioning properly because of trauma. Yes. So, it is, there's one of the survivors, one of the overcomers that we're working with, and he's not the only one. Of so many of the others cannot read. Like, he cannot read the Bible. He cannot read, if I tell him to read teachings, he can't. It's just jumping in front of his eyes. And so it's just because of all the trauma that he's been through. And so when you've been through just broken parents that have broken children, and your little mind splits to try and cope with all the different facets of life, that's how you grow up. And you just there's so much confusion. There is just so much things that go wrong. Dreams, there's a lot of bad dreams, nightmares, fear. You have panic attacks and you don't know why.
Absolutely.
You skip time. You think, what have I done today? Where was I today? You can't even remember your day. That's just what trauma does to the brain. So that is normal DID, dissociation. So that's when you've had messed up parents that messed you up, and that was downloaded, and now you're adults and you're trying to cope. Do you know, Chantel, that we are hardly doing any normal inner healing anymore, because so many people are now dissociated. Our street children, I work in prison as well. So working with the guys in prison, they are stuck. They have some parts that are little children.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, here you're sitting grown-up guys in orange overalls, their prison uniform, and they also academically struggle. They just struggle to cope, just with life. And they were sniffing glue as little children on the streets. So what happens is they go onto the streets, and if they're not picked up within 24 hours, so we have workers that walk our streets to see if they can see a strange little face that's now suddenly arrived on the streets. And they've got to get that child within 24 hours, get the child off the streets and into a place to get help. Otherwise, you've lost the child. 24 hours, that's it. That's your window. Oh. And then this child gets taken up into the system of the streets. And then there's like a daddy figure, because they look for a daddy. I mean, they don't even know who their earthly daddy is, their sperm donor. So they messed up. Now they on the streets, they get raped and they get pumped. These children, sodomy is rife among the little boys. So they get abused, they get sold out to whoever, they get pumped out. Then to deal with the pain, because you must now know what they feel like when they get back. They feel all messed up. And of course, so they sniff glue, and they get given alcohol and drugs and whatever to try and anesthetize the pain.
Yeah.
Now that's how they grow up. So of course they go into the criminal world, and that's when they start breaking in and do worse things or whatever. And that's how they land up in prison. So I also have worked with juvenile, the juvenile in prison. You're seeing these children that that were on the streets, and they tattooed. I mean, their whole face, there's hardly a mark on their face that doesn't have some other tattoo symbol that's on them. So now when they grow up and they mature and they get healing, they are marked, and they don't want this on their faces because nobody wants to give them a job. They immediately, oh, no, you can't, you can't trust them, so you can't give them a job. And so, I mean, what future do these people have? Yeah. And so a lot of them in the prison are DID because they split to try and deal with their trauma and deal with their situation. So they create parts for every walk of their world. They create parts.
Would that be what we call the split personality? So they would then have the split personalities.
The old terminology was multiple personality disorder or a split personality. Yeah. Their little brains can't handle the trauma and they split. And so that's your normal DID. So just messed up parents, mess up kids. And then also, that the children in Mozambique that grew up in the time with the landmines. Remember when they put the landmines in the ground, and then these bombs would just go, the children would walk across and they'd be bombed and they'd lose an arm, lose a leg, lose an eye, whatever, I mean, some die. That was their world. So how do you cope? How do you cope with that level of trauma? You split. You can't otherwise. And so that's DID. And that's why I'm saying to you that the counselors, your counselors, not only your psychologists that are trained professionally, I'm talking about just people that are prepared to pray with other people that are broken, need to know what DID is. They need to understand this because it's so rife. In our lifetime, it's so rife. And so you need to know how to minister to these people that are so broken. So now you've got DID. Now, the difference, if you've got, so now you've taken them through the bloodline, you've taken them through everything. Now you start looking at deep emotional, you start looking at trauma. And you see, was there trauma? You start doing, there's certain tests that you can do with them, questions that they answer, and you can then see, okay, there was trauma. There was definitely a level of trauma, and there's definitely a level of dissociation. But dissociation is on a scale. So you can have one or two personalities, or you can have 2,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So it depends on the level of trauma. So you determine and you help this person to deal with the fact that there were so many missing building blocks, so much trauma, so much brokenness. Now I want to move over to SRA. You've been doing a lot of interviews with Jessie. You've been doing amazing work, Chantel. I really want to honor you as a sissy in South Africa with me. To say to you, it's just beautiful because I've been in this game for a long time, many years, and we've had to whisper. We've had to do this behind closed doors. This has been a secret. You couldn't talk about this stuff, and to then navigate your way to try and find help, to try and find what's going on here. How do I help this person that's explaining to me demons come and attack them at night and choke them, and demons do this and this and this, and they're dreaming of a ritual that they're in a forest and they're wearing these black capes and they're chanting and they're walking around an altar and there's someone lying on an altar, and they start describing these things to you, but they whisper it to you because they're so ashamed. Because what are you going to think of me? Are you also going to reject me? Are you also going to walk away from me? And then if you know what is going on, if you understand and you've heard this stuff, you're going to have a heart of compassion and mercy, and you're not going to reject them. You will not push them away. You are going to help them. And this ministry is a ministry of love. There's not another word, because they've been so unloved. They've been the most unloved of society, and unknown and unheard. of all of
This
our.
is why I think I said to you, it was so important that people speak up and speak out. And that's why it's so important on our Overcomers channel that people are speaking, because every time they speak, there's healing that occurs. And every time somebody says, I believe you, there's healing that occurs. It's just beautiful to see what happens when people start speaking and when they are believed. And I'm so grateful, Amanda, as well, you know, for people like yourself that have been carrying this burden for so long, you know, and helping people that the world doesn't believe. And suddenly now more and more people, it's like, are being heard, being believed. And now is where the healing, the true healing can occur. So it's a beautiful thing to observe, actually. A great privilege, a great privilege.
Yeah, it is. You're right. You're right. And each one of these overcomers are very, very special people.
Absolutely.
They are bright. They are so talented. They can do multiple, I mean, they can draw, they can write poems. There's such a beauty that's inside of them, you know, that's just being suppressed and they've been trodden upon. And so, you know, just to be able to say, but I don't reject you. And, you know, Chantel, sometimes you have people that come for help that will wander into a church, just, okay, what's going on here? We had it in Germany quite a few times, because the church where we were, at the bottom of the church, it was like a huge shopping mall. So we were in the top, and the bottom was a what they called a rockfabriek. But this is, now think German, rockfabriek. So it's a rock, it's a disco, it's a rock.
Okay. I was meant a dress, Rocky.
So did we. When the first time we heard this, we thought dress is great, you know.
Exactly.
It's quite a wild place where drugs flow and alcohol and whatever. So anyway, when the music quietens down in the church and I start talking, then the building still goes. We had lots of fun. But anyway, then as I'm talking, some of they would wander in from the bottom, from the rockfabriek, you know, from this rock place, concert place. They would come wandering in, and this one girl came in, and she was like high. She was gone. Her mind was gone. She had tight fitting leather stud, you know, the clothing, and she hadn't bathed for I don't know how long. And she comes across the path where I'm standing in the middle of the pathway, and she comes to the back of the building, and she slithers down the wall like this, you know, and she lies there and she looks at me. So I'm praying like crazy. I'm saying, Father, please, this girl, she's got to find you. She's got to find you. She's so lost. So anyway, I took a friend with me to, I don't travel alone. So I had this lady that went with me, and in her day, she used to be a hippie. So she's got such a love for anyone from the street. I mean, she's got a love from the Father like you cannot believe. So the next thing I see, here she's at the back with this girl. She goes and sits right next to her. She puts her arm around her. And this girl doesn't smell good. I mean, she hasn't bathed for quite a while, you know, and her hair's dirty. But the love of the Father for this girl, she just loved on her. And she couldn't understand a word I'm saying. She's German. I'm speaking English. Of course, there was translation. So, but she was so blown, you know, with the drugs and things. But by the end, just loving on her, just giving her the love and not rejecting her and holding her, that girl stood up and she was sober. At the end of the service, she was sober. They brought her forward. And we started with the interpreter. We started talking to her. She'd come from East Germany. She was a prostitute. And she'd sold her body. And that's the life she knew. She was messed up from a baby. And all she knew was my body is a sex object, and this is the way I get money, and then I can get drugs, and this is my life. So we said to her, but there's more for you, because you've got a Father in heaven that loves you. And we started ministering to her. Just the love, just the love, just the love. And the whole week that we were there, we ministered to her, and we did deliverance. And every day we had an appointment with her. And every day you could see the change. You could see the change as she came back. By the end of the week, that girl was so touched. God had done such a deep work in her life. They had given her a job at the church, and they said, we're offering you something else. You don't have to sell your body anymore. Come and help us. You know, they just opened up their hearts. And we went back a year later. And as we came in, as we walked into the church, people were standing, and, you know, there was a lot of joy. There's a lot of joy in it was a lovely fellowship. And as we walked in, and I walked to the front, you know, to set up all my stuff, here's this girl standing right in the front with her arms raised and just worshiping God.
Wow.
And I looked, I couldn't believe this is the girl that came in a year before as a prostitute, broken, so addicted.
Absolutely, yeah.
And she's still serving God. You know, it's such a story. But what I'm saying to you, Chantel, if we are God's hands and feet and mouth and eyes, then there must be love, because we're going to lose people if we can't love them.
Absolutely.
Doesn't matter when last they had a bath.
Absolutely.
Jesus touched the lepers. He wasn't brought. And the social distancing, need I say more? But it's
absolutely, how crazy.
Breaking our society, that which God gave us as a society. You know, they're saying that children born in this time with the masks, with us wearing masks, have a lower IQ. They have done tests, and they have found that these children have got a lower IQ because there's no facial recognition.
Wow.
Our faces speak. Our eyes speak. We speak
it's
with,
so true.
You know, and we give love. We show love just by looking at someone.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
And that's what they've taken away from us. And
Absolutely.
so, you know, they're trying to second other rules, but they're saying the masks must stay. Why?
It's amazing that. It's absolutely amazing. And I believe that, you know, when we're talking about that whole kids with a lower IQ with the facial recognition, it's so true. It makes a lot of sense. Wow.
Yeah. Because
with that,
you know, we're a mirror for a baby.
Totally.
A child doesn't know who they are. And so the mommy and the daddy becomes a mirror. And so if you smile, baby smiles.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're angry, baby starts crying. So you are a mirror, and that's how they reflect. I mean, that's part of developing stages of a child.
Absolutely.
And we're being deprived, you know, that's taken away from us. So yeah, but let me, before our time runs out, let me just finish by saying to you, we've spoken what DID is, but now I want to say what's SRA. The difference, SRA is when you have a assigned perpetrator, a doctor or a parent can be trained to be a perpetrator, and
the handler, right? The handler.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's when you have someone who specifically, you have been handpicked, you've been selected pre-birth, the sperm donor and the ovum, and they already start there with uploading the sperm with demonic blessings, which are curses, and the same with the ovum. and they have planned your destiny. You have a demonic scroll over your life that is your destiny, and they make sure that that is what you will become. You don't have a choice.
You become their asset. You become their asset or their product, and they spend. And also, I think when we're looking at a lot of these people that have come out of SRA, and I'm just going to say, for those that don't know, satanic ritual abuse, that's what SRA stands for. So are super, super smart, and they've got amazing spiritual gifts. So they're highly intelligent and generally with a lot of spiritual gifts as well. So they would choose them, or even in their own depraved way, create them with the splicing and the splicing, that they do, right?
Yeah. So they purposefully, they have an end goal for you. You are going to make money for them. You are going to Hollywood, and you're going to be a beauty queen. So they put in beautiful features. I mean, we had some that we worked with here in South Africa that's now big names in Hollywood, that were taken through the whole satanic ritual abuse from baby, and taken through the whole thing. It was so interesting. We had two girls that went through exactly the same stuff. The one was chosen for the beauty queen and movies, but the other one wasn't. The other one was very upset. She said, wow, we were raped together by the pastor. We were raped together. We went through all the rituals together. But she goes and she becomes she becomes big and famous. What about me? So it's an, when you start listening to their stories, so they can create someone that is beautiful and that becomes a star. You can become very wealthy, and you can make lots of money, and you can control nations. We're working with people that are so highly programmed with money that they can shift money around, and they know exactly what's going on with the stock exchange, and they are trading, and brilliant. So they've been trained, they've been shaped, they've been enhanced, they've been given supernatural powers by the entities to do whatever the demonic scroll said. But how did they get there? It's the weight of the iniquity force on their bloodline. So you've got your DID, which is also iniquity, but obviously the scale, they lower down on the scale. Whereas if you move to SRA now, this is purposeful.
Yes.
This is chosen sperm. And we work with royals, with royal blood. And we know the mess, the junk that's on the royal blood lines. How much interbreeding and craziness and all of that stuff is there. And so the heavier the weight, the more power that child will have as they grow up. And we've got a little guy now. Wow, he is working with dragons. This is now the very young generation. He's below 10 years of age. And he's got a couple of dragons. Now, you tell that to a normal person, they think we're crazy.
Yeah. Wow.
He's got dragons. He's got powers over dragons. So, wow. I mean, this is where we are, and where we have to, if we want to help, if we want to be effective, we've got to start understanding this stuff. We've got to hear their stories. We have to listen.
And more than anything, we've got to wake up to the fact that this stuff is real. It exists. It's not some fairy tale horror story that we have to wake up to the reality that these people have been doing this for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately the highest and the most respected elite are the ones perpetrating this, and we cannot ignore that fact, because these are highly intelligent people, highly influential people that are creating these horrendous, I want to call it breeding programs, although
Yes,
we're not talking
it
about the
is.
breeder program, because we understand the breeder program, in my understanding, is when they literally getting young girls, impregnating them, raping them, doing whatever to churn out babies for their nefarious purposes. But these are specifically, it's a specific ovum and sperm that is chosen, spliced together, spiritually ritualed and done whatever, oftentimes birthed in false wombs. And anyone who thinks false wombs don't exist, you must think again, go and do some research. They're very, very real. And as you say, even in pigs' wombs, humans' wombs, get taken in and out of certain mother wombs. They'll have some time in that womb taken out, put in another womb. It is insane what these people are doing.
It is. It is. Really. It really is. Yeah.
And we can't think that it's not existing, because I would love to, and I mean, I'm just looking at the time here again, Amanda. Wow. But I would love to carry on this conversation. Let's go more in depth with the SRA in our next conversation, where we can discuss layers of that. Because I think, again, I always say on this channel, I don't want to sensationalize things, but when we start bringing things up like this, it is so important. And of course, people go, oh my gosh, it's a shocking thing. And it is, I think, by nature sensationalized when you're waking up and you're smelling the poop that's been right under your nose while you've been sleeping for all this time. Okay. So it's about understanding the different layers, why they're doing it, how they're doing it, and how we can be aware of it and maybe recognize it, and how we as ordinary citizens can maybe be more compassionate, be more understanding, and actually understand that there are thousands of people that this has occurred to, walking around amongst us, that you wouldn't even begin to recognize. You wouldn't even know it. It could be the kid that sat next to you at school for 4 years in high school.
Exactly. Yeah.
That had weird behavioral. I mean, gosh, if I just think back to being in high school and stuff like that, and there were so many kids that came to our school and I was at boarding school in the Karoo, from broken homes in the cities and stuff. And I just wish I'd known what I know now, because I would have probably recognized a lot of these symptoms of which we're speaking now.
Yes.
So I would like us to educate the public on what it's about. And let's recognize it. How can we, none of us, I don't think anyone, unless you qualify, should go out there and suddenly try and start slaying the dragon and slaying the demon. But how are we aware of it, and what can we do to help in the society? Wow.
Yes.
I think that's what I'd love to talk about the next one. It's such an interesting topic, and it's so important for us to recognize what it is. Knowledge is power, and the truth sets us free. And that's why we need to know about these things, not for sensational purposes, but to understand it.
To help. Yeah. And I think the more we can educate, the quicker we're going to tear the net, that whole demonic net that's kept everything that's it's like people have been put to sleep. It's like they're in La La Land. They've had lullabies sung to them, and they where we as the church should be helping, but we're so busy with ourselves that we and also it's like, okay, this is not for me, this is not for me, but who's going to get their hands dirty? I mean, somebody has got to catch the fish and clean the fish.
The bottom line is, the more we say this is not for me, and I just want to see, how many times a year people say to me, well, I just want to see the good and beautiful things in life. I mean, when we do that, we remain complicit with this, because these guys are banking on our ignorance. They're banking on the fact that we don't want to get involved. So when we carry on that way, and when we just go, oh no, I'd rather not see it, we become complicit. And this could be
Yeah.
your child. This could be
Yeah.
your grandchild. This could
Yes.
be your brother. It could be your sister. It could be your
Yeah.
loved one. It could be your
Yes.
husband. It could be your
Yeah.
wife.
Yeah.
If your wife or husband is displaying strange behavioral patterns, and you go, oh my goodness, you know, I need a shrink, or I'm divorcing this narcissist. There's a reason why people become narcissistic, okay? But there's a reason why people become the mangala. It's like we're talking about the two parts.
That's right. Yeah.
So
but we can still do quite a few sessions on that, you know, Chantel, because I mean, there's a lot. It's packed, you know, to take. We you know, if we want to give it in bite sizes for people that are able to chew and swallow, then we can do that. It's going to be so important to educate, because I think what we've done tonight is laid a good foundation on what is just DID. And that is so common. That is so common. You know, most of the school teachers that are sitting with those little kids sitting in front of them, they are sitting with DID children. And if they can start helping them, you know, from then, it's going to prevent a generation of messed up adults.
This is exactly the thing. We start with the kids. You know, that's what my son kids stuff that Morna and I are doing. You know, this is why we, from young, we've got to allow parents and children to be aware that a child's power is their own. And from from birth, that power belongs to them. We do not have the right to dictate who they should be. God has already decided that. As parents, we are yet to be their guides, not their dictators or controllers. And you can only do that when you yourself as an adult are in alignment with God. That's it.
Yes. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. This has been a really wonderfully interesting conversation again. Thank you, Amanda. I don't know if there's anything that you want to just say in closing before we bid our audience farewell for today. 2 weeks later. I'm seeing you for lunch next week. Oh, yay.
Yeah, that's right. No, Chantel, if I can just, you know, plead with people, please open your minds and your hearts, and just open up so that you are prepared to at least listen to people's stories. And it's not one person talking, it's not two people talking, it is all over the world. People are talking. And the more we become aware, and the more we are, you know, we're not ignorant anymore, because, you know, ignorance is how the enemy can mess with us. So if we're not ignorant anymore and we are informed and we have knowledge, then we are at least able to maybe not help, but direct people to get help and to say, but I understand what you're saying, you know.
Just by being open and receptive to someone saying, you know what, I believe you, I know what you're saying is true, I'm not equipped to help you right now, but let me hold your hand and we'll find someone. That's all it takes. No one is expecting you to fix anyone. Just be that open place where someone feels safe. If it means opening my lounge tonight for you to come and talk for an hour and just share your heart while I'm just sitting there making you tea, that could just be what it takes for that person to cross that bridge to heal. That's it. Just to be able to be aware. Wow.
It's a very lonely walk for the overcomer, for the survivors. It's very lonely, and they really need support. Just someone that you have coffee with them, whatever, you know.
What these people have been through, and I mean, I've just been working and talking to overcomers now for more than a year. Okay, I've been a healer for 20 years, and I've definitely come across horror stories. And in hindsight, I can definitely know that a lot of the people I've worked with in the past actually have had this kind of stuff happen with them. So it really is amazing just to be able to just understand and be there and not judge. Just be there.
Yeah,
that's all we require. Yeah, and what
that's
these
right.
people have been through is beyond horrific. Beyond horrific.
And they did not
deserve
ask. Yeah, they didn't ask for this at all in their lives. It's not something they chose. Nobody would choose it ever. It is so horrific.
Let's be there, and I look forward to having you back in 2 weeks' time. So I want to say thank you to our beautiful viewers, as always, for supporting our channel and listening and being open-hearted and open-minded and just being cool. Thanks, guys. Take care. If you haven't already, please give us a like, a share, and a subscribe. We're on Facebook, BitChute, Twitter, Telegram, and Odyssey. And we also have our new solutions channel now as well, that Amanda, I want to speak to you about just after this, that we're taking, because on Aquarius Rising Africa, we bring up the ugly stuff. And on the solutions channel, we now create a bridge to find solutions for that ugly stuff, and we turn it into something beautiful. So the alchemy of the spirit. So yeah, thank you so much, guys and girls. We love you madly. God bless.